Hello and welcome to this quick revision session. Before launching the massive civil disobedience movement in 1930, Mahatma Gandhi gave the British government one last chance. On March 2, 1930, he presented a set of 11 demands to the Viceroy Lord Irwin. These demands were a test of British sincerity. They were strategically chosen to unite India's diverse groups, from farmers and industrialists to the common masses. But how did these demands address India's grievances? And how did the British response directly trigger the historic Dandi March? In this session, we will cover the context of this ultimatum, break down the key economic and political demands, understand what was not demanded, and see how this event became the immediate catalyst for the civil disobedience movement. So, what was the context? This was just after the Lahore Congress of 1929, where Purna Swaraj or complete independence was declared as the goal. The atmosphere was charged. Gandhi published these 11 demands in his journal, Young India, and presented them to Lord Irwin. The aim was to offer a minimum program that the British could accept to avoid a mass agitation. These demands were a blend of grievances affecting every section of Indian society, making the call for freedom relatable to all. The economic demands struck at the heart of British financial control. The first major demand was a 50% reduction in land revenue to relieve the burden on farmers. The most famous demand was the abolition of the salt tax and the state's salt monopoly. This was a brilliant move, as salt was a basic necessity uniting Hindus and Muslims, rich and poor. He also called for a 50% cut in military expenditure and salaries of high officials. For Indian industries, he demanded a reduction in the rupee sterling exchange ratio to 1 shilling 4 pence and the protection of the Indian textile industry from foreign competition. Now, let's look at the political demands, which aimed to curb the oppressive power of the colonial state. Gandhi demanded the release of all political prisoners who hadn't been convicted of violence. He also called for reforms in the Criminal Investigation Department, CID, to end its political surveillance of nationalists. Finally, a significant demand was a change in the Arms Act, which heavily restricted Indians from owning firearms. Gandhi wanted to allow Indians to bear arms for self-defense, challenging the state's monopoly on force. It is critically important for your prelims to know what was not on this list. First, dominion status was not demanded. This is a common mistake. The Congress had already moved past this at the 1929 Lahore session. The goal was now Purna Swaraj or complete independence. Second, the abolition of untouchability was not part of this 11-point ultimatum. While this was a core belief for Gandhi, his major nationwide campaign for Harijan upliftment gained momentum later, especially after the Pune Pact of 1932. So, what was the British response? Viceroy Lord Irwin and the British government completely ignored the 11-point ultimatum. There was no positive response. With the deadline of March 11th having passed, Gandhi declared, "I have asked for bread and I have received stone." This rejection was the final trigger. On March 12, 1930, Gandhi, along with his followers, began the historic Dandi March from Sabarmati Ashram to the coastal village of Dandi, marking the formal launch of the civil disobedience movement. Now, let's check your understanding with some quick practice questions. And for more such quick revision topics, keep watching Vision IAS.